Matt and Jeff Hardy on in July, and I asked them, like, what do you make of this WWE TNA partnership? And Matt said to me, like, let's be honest, it's to hurt AEW. Do you view it that way as well? That's the way he put it.
I really like Matt and Jeff a lot. I like Matt and Jeff a lot, and I loved working with them when they were in AEW, and I still love Matt and Jeff very much. If they
and I don't think it was malicious.
I don't think at all.
But do you think that that's the impetus?
I respect that.
Hey guys, we soon gonna talk about Tony Khan and what he talks about the WWE TNA partnership and how the counter programming has affected AEW. Let's talk more about the locker room. You don't want to miss out on this one. Hey guys, we're back at Toxic Reign Scandal, aka KDH. We're here at the locker room. We'll talk about Tony Khan on WWE ruining his AEW company. Tune in, guys. We about to air some dirty laundry on this one. Now, Tony Khan did an interview with Ariel Helwani on his show, Ariel Helwani Show. Now, it was on a podcast interview. We know these two had past issues with amongst each other. They buried a hatchet. However, since they were able to do that, there were a lot of questions that Ariel had asked Tony. One of the many questions that he asked was two questions I'm going to talk about. One is going to be about the TNA WWE partnership. He's going to talk about that and how the counter programming has affected his company, and also how Matt Hardy even spoke about it as well in a prior interview with Ariel Helwani alongside his brother Jeff Hardy. And also we're going to talk about as well how counter programming has ruined not just the partnership, ruining everything, but the counter programming of WWE doing shows just adjacent of AEW. Now, if you guys remember, AEW and TNA had a partnership. I think it was back in 2019, 2020, 2021. This is when they were still Impact. And we remember Kenny Omega was the Impact World Champion when he had the AEW World Championship, and Christian also was a Impact World Champion as well. But this was a partnership. This is the very beginning of the AEW days when they was just starting up the company back in 2019. They had the partnership, their first big partnership besides the New Japan Pro Wrestling, but also we know since then that the partnership with TNA has dissolved, and now it's with WWE. But we're going to see what they have to say in this interview here, guys. Let's check it out.
Jeff Hardy on in July, and I asked them, like, what do you make of this WWE TNA partnership? And Matt said to me, like, let's be honest, it's to hurt AEW. Do you view it that way as well? That's the way he put it.
I really like Matt and Jeff a lot. I like Matt and Jeff a lot, and I loved working with them when they were in AEW, and I still love Matt and Jeff very much. If they
and I don't think it was malicious.
I don't think at all. And
but do you think that that's the impetus?
I respect that opinion a lot. I think
you agree with it.
I think it's probably true, and I respect that Matt said it. Honestly,
yeah,
I think that's really cool. And I think Matt's a great guy. I think Jeff's a.
What
great
do you
guy.
make of that? The fact that they're so tight now.
It's interesting. I think it's a very interesting collaboration. But I think Matt hit the nail on the head that it makes sense, and AEW is a very strong challenger brand, and it's not that unusual. Like,
you take it as a compliment, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you know, I remember when WCW was starting to do better and Smoky Mountain Wrestling was running shows in Georgia, that Vince McMahon called up Jim Cornette and sent a bunch of the WWF wrestlers to Smoky Mountain Wrestling to help
history repeating itself,
compete with WCW. So I do think, like, when you have a strong challenger brand, it's not that unusual to see the WWF collaborate with another company. We saw that with Smoky Mountain there, and in Memphis, I think, did some of the same things to compete with WCW shows. So it's not that unusual. And again, I don't take it personally at all. It makes sense looking at the wrestling playbook of the WWF.
When you saw that picture of Jade and I hadn't really heard you asked about this, so would love to hear your thoughts. It is very clear to me as an outsider that when you're putting on a big show, WWE tries to counter program it. How do you react when this happens? Do you think this is being done on purpose?
I do think it's done on purpose, and I understand it, and it's part of wrestling, and I think we've seen a lot of it, but I think other wrestling promotions that have been the challenger wrestling brand in our lifetime have seen a lot of it. Jim Crockett Promotions, which was the forerunner to WCW, saw a lot of this, and Jim Crockett Promotions ended up having to sell the company to Ted Turner, who then made a great run. It took a while. And really, if you look, Ted Turner took over at the start of 1989, and the strongest run came over 6 years later, almost 7 years later, it started really when business peaked and took off their peak years. So it's interesting because as a challenger wrestling promotion, you've got a great opportunity, but it's really hard. It involves tons of investment to build up to be a true, strong challenger, and that's why we took the risk with AEW when we did. I do think that we've seen that kind of counter-programming and those things, and I understand, and looking back at wrestling history, kind of expect that. And
does it frustrate you?
I think it's okay because for us, it's always worked out and we're in a great position. So it hasn't ever been a thing where it's cost us anything. And even when you do something like AEW All in Texas, where we do the show in the afternoon, it really worked out for us great. And it was one of the best days in the history of the company. So
you don't take it personally. You're not like, can you guys just leave me alone? No. Can I just have the day for myself? The one in Toronto, right? You put it earlier in the day because they had the ESPN debut. And so, you'd have to be an idiot to not think that this is being done on purpose. UFC used to do this with their competition back in the day. And so I was just curious how you react internally to this.
Well, it's very interesting. I think that it's something that is a part of the wrestling business, and I definitely don't take it personally. I think it's no more personal to me than it was towards Jim Crockett, or even maybe less so than it was with Ted Turner, or similar amounts as with Ted Turner. But definitely, I think all of us have seen that kind of counter programming and could speak to that. And certainly with AEW, I'm very proud that we continue to really run strong and be that great challenger brand in pro wrestling. AEW is where the best wrestle. I really believe that. And I think we have the best roster in wrestling today and the best wrestlers, and put on the best shows like this Saturday.
The amazing about this is, you guys know, like 2000 WWE, they aren't working with TNA, right? They're not doing this sort of thing. Why does it work now? Why does it happen now? Like there was once a time, like, we don't co-promote with other people. We're not propping up. We're not sending our talent to different promotions. What's the difference?
Ariel, why do you think it's happening now?
Well, I have an idea, but I think I'd prefer to hear your idea. No, it's the big man's not there, right? Or do you think it's a different reason?
No, I mean, I would guess too. Part of it is AEW and its existence.
Okay, so you think that's a better answer than mine, if I'm being honest. Let's prop these guys up. Let's give these guys the opportunity to block out these guys without beating around the bush.
I mean, I think that could obviously be a feasible option.
Do you think it's working?
It's helping us.
Yes,
no doubt. So, and I think it's. I mean, TNA is a company that's been around over 2 decades, 20 plus years, and I think it's an important staple of pro wrestling. And they do a style that is more similar to the WWE style, you know. So I think it's a good call. I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Do you think there'll ever be a period where it's more WWE TNA as opposed to NXT TNA?
It could be possible, especially with some.
Let's talk about the partnership and the counter programming. Now, we know NXT did a show not too long ago, back in October, called NXT Showdown. This was an episode of NXT programming on Tuesdays on CW, where they did have talent from TNA also appearing on the show. But they had a battle. You guys remember, it was a 5-on-5 men and women's. It was literally the battle of NXT versus TNA wrestling. And we saw a lot of talent from both companies. And, you know, a lot of former talent from WWE on TNA, and a lot of people, and some people from TNA that went to WWE. Now, we saw Trick Williams, who was then TNA World Champion, and we saw a lot of talent on the men's 5-on-5 traditional tag team match. That was that Showdown. And then we also see the utilization of the women's division. We seen Kalani Jordan, TNA Women's Champion, and we saw a 5-on-5 traditional tag team for the women's side. And we see NXT talent holding on to TNA titles similar to AEW. But, you know, this partnership compared to AEW TNA, they definitely turned it up a notch, because TNA have their PLEs now, and they feature NXT talent. And ever since the partnership with NXT and TNA have began, we know TNA numbers have increased as far as their attendance and their viewership numbers. So this is really benefiting TNA as far as viewership and exposure-wise, and WWE allowed to be able to hold on to TNA's titles and get more wins over that. So I believe with that, as Matt Hardy has said, it was just designed to destroy AEW, who had a partnership prior with TNA before WWE has. But I would say that they're doing very well with the partnership. I think they do a little bit too much, the partnership, overusing talent, but it's working to their advantage. We can't say that, but it's really bringing Tony down. Now, we know Tony Khan and AEW have a partnership with New Japan Pro Wrestling and Stardom Wrestling, but they need to get a major promotion. They need to get another partnership with another promotion. Now, I know they are doing something with the NWA, with the national title, trying to bring that back to lineage and everything else. But I think it would be safe to say it would be better if they really get into motion a partnership with AEW and NWA. I think that would be a great thing for both companies. NWA, we know, has been down for some time. They're trying to bring back to promise like they were back in the old days. I think that would do very good for that company. Now, that's for that TNA, the partnership with WWE that's affected AEW. Now, when it comes to counter-programming, I will say the counter-programming has definitely taken its toll on AEW this year, because every time we hear AEW do a pay-per-view, wherever the case may be, we always see WWE want a counter-program with that. If it's a WWE PLE for the main roster or NXT PLE for that event for the developmental brand, or Saturday Night's main event. We've seen that all this year in 2025, guys. That's very common that they've been doing that. We have examples here of NXT Heatwave and AEW's Forbidden Door. These were aired on the same exact day back in July of this year. So when Forbidden Door was going to come out, then NXT announced they was going to do Heatwave, clearly trying to destroy AEW on that part. Then it happened, another example is this year, All Out. They had in Toronto, great show, and they had the horrible WrestlePalooza the same day back in September. So we know that AEW, they are known for doing this. Whether it's an NXT show or a main roster show, it doesn't even matter. And then, of course, another example I'll give too. This example that was the biggest blow this year is when AEW had their biggest premiere event of the year, AEW All In early July 12th to be exact. And then later on that evening, we did have Saturday Night's main event, Goldberg's last match, where he lost his final match to Gunther. So AEW, they're being kind of programmed every step of the way. It's not an accident. It's not a coincidence. WWE is clearly coming for AEW and trying to ruin them as a wrestling company. Now, AEW fans, they don't like that too much. Meanwhile, the WWE fans are rejoicing. They're happy for it, saying AEW sucks anyway. You guys may be saying that in the chat right now. But I will say Tony Khan, compared to what WWE is doing today, modern day, he is making his shows a lot more affordable compared to WWE, who's charging literally 5 times the normal rate that they were charging in the past. But is this going to destroy AEW with the partnership and counter programming? You guys let me know. And that's all I have for Tony Khan on WWE ruin his AEW company. WWE, TNA, and counter programming ruining AEW. You guys let me know what you think. Check out the content below. Check out the video. And of course, guys, you already know what it is at this point. It's OUT.